The 22nd of February 1943, near Kasserine Pass, Tunisia. The air trembles with the sound of artillery, a metallic roar echoing through the olive groves. Dust and diesel fumes mix with the acrid smell of cordite. Private Karl Weiss, 23 years old, clutches his carabiner 98K rifle and peers through the smoke. His regiment, the 10th Panzer Division, has been fighting non-stop for 3 days against the Americans, those so-called factory boys the German radio mocked for years. But something isn't right. The enemy isn't retreating, they're advancing, fast. Across the ravine, Shermans rumble forward, not a few but dozens. The ground quakes under their tracks. P-38 Lightnings dive in pairs, strafing the road behind Karl's unit. The Luftwaffe is nowhere in sight. Within an hour, German command is in chaos. Orders dissolve into shouts. Zurück, Rückzug, someone yells, but retreat is impossible. The hills are crawling with olive-drab uniforms. By afternoon, the remnants of the 10th Panzer are encircled. Karl drops his rifle and raises his hands, dust coating his face like ash. American MPs shout, "Drop it, hands up," and march the prisoners down the valley. As night falls, Karl sits in a makeshift enclosure with hundreds of others, dazed men in torn field grey uniforms. The Americans bring them water, cigarettes, even bandages. Some GIs joke as they work their southern drawls, cutting through the tension. "Y'all picked the wrong desert to fight in one," says, handing Karl a canteen. Karl takes a sip. The water is cold. Clean. He looks up and mutters to himself in disbelief. They have ice. In the desert. For weeks he had heard nothing but Goebbels' speeches about America's crumbling economy, soup lines, jobless masses, broken machines. Yet here in the middle of the North African sands, even the lowest-ranking soldiers have supplies and comfort beyond what most Germans could imagine. That night, as Allied searchlights sweep over the captured men, Karl stares at the stars and wonders what awaits them. If their soldiers live like this, he whispers to a fellow prisoner, what must their country look like? A few months later he finds out. August 1943. Aboard the Liberty ship SS William Pepperell Montague, Atlantic Ocean. The prisoners crowd the deck, wrapped in American Army blankets. The ocean wind carries a salty chill and gulls circle lazily above. Karl grips the railing, staring at the endless horizon. Behind him, an American guard leans against a Thompson submachine gun, half listening to Glenn Miller's Moonlight Serenade on a small field radio. The tune is soft, hypnotic, the kind of music Karl remembers hearing only in Berlin cafes before the war. One of the prisoners, an older Obergefreiter named Ernst, shakes his head. "So much for a starving nation," he mutters. "They even bring music to sea." When the Liberty ship docks in Norfolk, Virginia, the Germans are herded off in orderly rows. American MPs joke and share cigarettes, some even nodding respectfully. There's no jeering, no beatings, nothing like what the propaganda films promised. They travel by train across rolling farmland, past towns that look like something out of a postcard, clean streets, painted barns, gas stations glowing under neon lights. Children wave as the train passes. Women hang laundry outside neat wooden houses, cars parked in every driveway. Karl leans close to the window. "That can't be right," he whispers. "Every worker has a car." Ernst squints. "Impossible. In Germany, not even officers have that." When the train stops in Kansas, the prisoners are unloaded under the hot sun. Ahead lies their new home, Camp Concordia, one of more than 500 prisoner-of-war camps across the United States. Rows of wooden barracks, a mess hall, a small library, even a baseball field. The American officers call it temporary housing. To Karl, it looks like a small town. A U.S. sergeant hands out soap-clean uniforms and work assignments. "You boys'll be helping with harvest tomorrow," he says cheerfully. "Corn and wheat. Farmers'll feed you well." Karl nods numbly. In his pocket he finds a bar of soap stamped Procter & Gamble. The smell, lemon and something sweet, reminds him of home before the war. That night, lying on a clean mattress with fresh sheets, Carl stares at the ceiling. Outside, the guards' radios hum with jazz and baseball commentary. He whispers, "This isn't how you treat prisoners, this is how you treat guests." He doesn't yet know that what shocks him most is still to come. Not the comfort, not the food, but the sight of ordinary Americans living lives richer than any officer in the Reich. September 1943, rural Kansas. The Kansas sky is endless blue as far as the eye can see. Each morning the prisoners march out to work on nearby farms. The Americans pay them 80 cents a day in camp coupons, enough to buy cigarettes, candy, or paper at the camp store. Carl and a few others are assigned to a wheat farmer named Bill Jenkins, a man in his 40s with a sunburned neck and a worn baseball cap. His wife, Mary, brings them lemonade in mason jars, smiling politely. "You boys thirsty?" she asks in slow, careful English. Carl nods. "Danke." "Thank you." As the days pass, Bill treats them not as enemies but as hired hands. He jokes, teaches them how to operate the Ford tractor, and lets them rest under the shade when the heat climbs. Carl notices the farm's equipment shiny, well-maintained, American-made. The barn houses a truck, a tractor, and even a small Chevrolet parked beside the house. One afternoon, while loading hay, Carl asks hesitantly, "Herr Jenkins, you are officer?" Bill laughs. "Officer, nah, just a farmer." Carl frowns. "But you have car, radio, big house." Bill wipes sweat from his brow. "Sure do. Got the radio back in '39. Chevy's a 41 model, runs fine. Most folks in town got one." Carl exchanges glances with Ernst. In Germany, a car was a status symbol reserved for party officials, doctors, or industrialists. A radio required government approval. Here, even a farmer, a man with calloused hands and sunburned skin, owned both. That evening, after returning to camp, Carl writes in his diary, "They say these people are poor, lazy, decadent. Yet they live better than our officers. Every house with a car, every worker with shoes and food. If this is decay, then I wish we had some of it." Within months, the camp's small library is filled with German soldiers learning English. They read American newspapers, fascinated by the open criticism of President Roosevelt, something unimaginable under Hitler. At night, they gather near the fence and listen to the local radio station. Jazz, baseball scores, advertisements for soap and cereal. Carl listens closely, his brow furrowed. They even have food commercials. During war. The older prisoners shake their heads. Propaganda, one insists. Surely it's all fake. But Carl isn't so sure anymore. December 1943. Camp Concordia Recreation Hall. Snow falls gently outside the barracks. Inside, a group of German prisoners sings Christmas carols beside a small pine tree decorated with paper stars. American guards listen quietly, some joining in. On the radio, Bing Crosby's "I'll Be Home for Christmas" plays softly. After the songs, Bill Jenkins visits the camp with gifts, tins of cookies, and an old Life magazine. Carl flips through the pages. He freezes. Photographs of Detroit's assembly lines fill the spread. Women building aircraft engines, rows of new cars, soldiers posing beside mountains of supplies. The caption reads, "America's arsenal industry in overdrive." He hands the magazine to Ernst. "They're not starving," he whispers. "They're unstoppable." When Carl and the others return to work after Christmas, Bill invites them into town for a meal. "Local diners got roast beef today," he grins. "Figured you boys earned it." The prisoners are hesitant but accept. Inside the diner, they see teenagers in clean clothes, laughing jukeboxes, playing swing tunes, and families ordering slices of pie. On the wall hangs a photo of a young man in uniform, Bill's nephew, serving somewhere in Italy. Mary leans over and asks Carl, "So, what did they tell you about us back home?" Carl hesitates. "They said, you were poor, hungry, factories closed, people fighting for bread." Bill laughs softly. "Well, someone lied. Carl stirs his coffee. I think, maybe they lied to us all. From that day forward, the tone inside Camp Concordia changes. The prisoners' arrogance melts into quiet reflection. Many begin to question the propaganda they once believed without doubt. By 1945, as Germany collapses, word spreads through the camp that Hitler is dead. Some men weep, others simply stare into the distance. Carl, now leaner but wiser, looks up at the American flag fluttering above the camp gate. He murmurs, "So this is what freedom looks like." 2 years later, when he returns to a shattered Germany, Carl carries with him something he never expected, not bitterness but admiration. In post-war letters, he writes to Bill and Mary Jenkins, thanking them for showing me what truth looked like when the radio only spoke lies. History doesn't whisper here. It marches, roars, and burns through the fog. At Forgotten Frontlines, we follow the boots, the bullets, and the blood trails to where the truth lives. Subscribe, because history doesn't hide from us and we won't let it hide from you.